So we've been going through the 10 Commandments because the 10 Commandments, they have powerful spiritual truths that are always good for all time, no matter, if you had a time machine, no matter where you traveled into history or into the future, the 10 Commandments will always hold power for transformation for us. Now, for the Hebrew people, it was about creating law and order in their environment so that they could experience peace and harmony in their lives. But even for us, it's about creating law and order, but in our head, so that we can experience peace and harmony. So today we get to the 9th commandment. I'm kind of sad to be closing in on the end here. But yeah, so the 9th commandment is, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Now this is one of those commandments, like some of the commandments are obvious, like thou shalt not murder. We know that. Here's one though that sometimes we may still need the reminder, not to bear false witness against our neighbor. Because what that can look like is telling exaggerating stories about someone to maybe make them not look like they're in such a good light. Okay, or to imply that they have a negative behavior. Not come right out and say anything, but imply it. That is to bear false witness against our neighbor. What we're doing is perpetuating false information about someone that could harm them. Right? That's why we want to give up gossiping. But a deeper look at this commandment, that thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor, is thou shalt not bear false witness against the source of your good. Okay, against the source of our good. This is when we perpetuate false information about God and abundance in our life. We say, when we are bearing false witness, what we're saying is God is limited. This one situation here, God can't work in. It's just going to be bad. So it's very similar actually to the 3rd commandment. You shall not take the Lord's name in vain, which is you shall not speak the word of lack or limitation. But bearing false witness takes us just a little bit deeper because it's how we talk about the activity of God everywhere in our lives. And like even extend it, we could say the country, okay, the activity in the country. And it's going to be where we limit God. Well, all these bad things are happening over there, okay? We just stick with that. That's bad. That's just bad, and that's just how it is. So we can do this in our normal life because it's easy actually to start thinking a bit about these things because there might be conditions in our life that do cause us worry. You know, if we have a friend and they're ill, and maybe we're talking to our partner or another friend and we say, yeah, you know, this person, they're so sick and you know, her husband's just not helping her out at all and she's got the babies to take care of and I just don't know what they're going to do if anything happens to her. That is to bear false witness against the divine source working through her, right? The divine source of healing. We're implying, if we say that and we just say that, we're implying that the divine is not working in her. If we're dwelling on monetary lack or financial problems, we're focusing on lack and limitation. And so we're bearing false witness against the true abundance that God is. If we're talking even about the state of the country, and we're worrying whether it's politics or pandemics or some other thing, okay, if we're worrying about that, we are failing to recognize the activity of God everywhere. And like that's the unity principles. The first principle is God is all things, the everywhere presence, everything that's ever been, everything that's yet to be. And so when we talk about our country and the problems all over, we're saying basically, yeah, God's not over there. There's lack and limitation. The thing is that we do experience these things. We do experience conditions in our life that do cause us distress. I mean, those are very real conditions, and I'm not saying to pretend that everything is okay. Okay, this isn't about pretending. We don't transform anything on our life if we try to pretend our way out of it. Our earthly experience is a strange paradox. You know, we are here and we're created in the image and the likeness of our Creator. And that part of us is changeless. We're always an infinite being. Right now, we are all of us an infinite being in a body, having an experience here on this planet. We are not the things that we do. So we're not our mistakes. We're not our failures. We're not even our successes. Because those are all things we leave behind when we lay this body down. Who we always are, that is changeless, is an infinite being in a body. We are the activity of God, having an experience right here and now. That's what we're doing. So we live in a world, we're changeless as an infinite being, but we live in a world that is constantly changing, that has the conditions that include poverty and disease and chaos, death, right? Those conditions are always around us. We bear false witness against our good when we fail to recognize God in all of that. Okay, whatever that is, just whatever that is. Whatever that we see as being a problem in our life, we are bearing false witness against God if we keep blaming the condition. In Matthew 6:22, Jesus had said, we've all heard this, right? If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Or you might have heard it, if your eye is single, your whole body will be lighted up, okay? But this is about being double-minded, because a double-minded person is unstable in all their ways. Double-minded is when we can say we have faith. Oh, I have faith. Everything will work out. But then we worry. But except for this. Do you need some water, Mom?
No, I've got water.
Okay. So we have faith, but then we worry. It's like, how is this going to work out? Right? So we're double-minded. Here it's like, okay, I'll hand it over to God, but then it's like, but I don't know how to do it, so maybe I shouldn't even try doing it. Okay, that's double-minded. What Jesus said, keep your eye healthy and your whole body will be full of light, this was a poetic way of saying, keep your focus on God. Keep your focus on the presence of God, that it's everywhere. It's always been, it's yet to be, it's everything that ever was. Keep your focus on that. Remember that God is in all the conditions. God is present everywhere, so it's in all the conditions. It's in every circumstance. It's in every event. It's also in each of us. We are, if God's everything, that means me, that means you, that means all of us. That means our ideas. That means our inspirations, right? Going into solution mode, having a solution pop into our head, and all of a sudden we know what to do. God is present in all the conditions that we're facing. The conditions that frighten us, the conditions that cause us doubt, the conditions that cause us to lose hope, the conditions that happen that cause us to experience heartbreak. God is present in all of those conditions. Everywhere there is God. Everywhere in all of that is the power of creation ready to unfold in our life if we would just focus on it. Just focus on it. So every time we say something like, and this is also what's connected to the third commandment, not taking the Lord's name in vain. When we say something like, I am poor, I don't have enough of this, I don't have enough of that. I don't know, why did this happen? Why did bad things keep happening? I'm a good person, and yet I can't seem to make this thing work. What's wrong with everything? What's wrong with me that I can't switch my focus? When we're saying that, we take our eye off of God, and we're focusing on the problem. That's when we become double-minded. Okay? God is all things, and that means me, but why can't I just do this one thing? Why am I so terrible at that? That's double-minded. And when that happens, we're just not living in the unity principles. God is all things, and that means me, and I create my life experience through my way of thinking and acting and my choices. And when I align with God and pray, I do the first three principles so much better, and then I'm walking the walk. I'm doing the work. Right? That's all that any of that means. If we're double-minded, we're not thinking about the unity principles. Or if you want to think about the commandments, if we're double-minded, we're breaking the first 4 commandments. We've put an idol out there before God, right? We're not recognizing God as the ultimate authority. And then we're thinking the words of lack. And then we're speaking the words of lack. And then, rather than letting go and letting God do its part, and then we do our part, and then God does his part, instead we give up hope on whatever it is that we wanted to create. Our lives are a paradox. They really are. We are spiritual beings in a body. We're each of us a spark of the divine, walking around in a big pile of human conditions. Big pile of human conditions. So we bear false witness against God when we call God limited. And we don't come right out and say, God is limited. We say, I can't do that. That's too hard. I'm poor. I'm sick. I don't know how to move forward. That's how we call God limited. And we just forget. That's all. We've forgotten our divine nature. In Matthew 5:39, Jesus talks about resisting evil. Or not resisting evil. He says, you should not resist evil. And I thought, well, that sounds kind of funny, right? Because you think of evil and you think of those scary movies that I'm going to be watching in October on Netflix. But, we hear all the time, what you resist persists. Okay, that's a new thought saying we love to say. That's a new age saying we love to say. It's also a personal growth and development saying. Okay, so what we resist persists. Resisting something is pushing against it. We're in full contact with it. If you're trying to push a door closed and the door won't, there's resistance, right? But think about it, you're touching it, you're looking at it, it's got all of your attention, it's taking all of your energy and force. So what we resist is we're pouring our energy into it, we're giving it power. Now Jesus said this, okay? Teacher Jesus was talking about don't resist evil. Now, what he was getting to is there's this story where the Romans were occupying Jerusalem. And it was Roman law that said Roman soldiers, when they were passing through town, they could order a Jewish man to carry their heavy, heavy pack for 1 mile. That was the law. And the Jewish man could not refuse. Or who knows what the Romans would do to him. Okay, so the Jewish man could not refuse. And this was humiliating. Okay, this was humiliating to have to carry the pack of a Roman soldier. Now, Jesus taught, okay, the first mile you have to do because it's the law. Give that soldier a second mile because then you have the power. The first mile you have to do because it's required. The second mile is a gift. He turned those men into gift givers so they could take back their power. This shifted how those men could view their situation. They didn't have to feel humiliated by it anymore. They were now a gift giver. They went above and beyond. So do not resist evil. That is just about, it's not about ignoring when people do evil things. If you see a person do an evil thing, call 911. But this is just about not staying focused on conditions, okay? Resist not evil. This is about how we interact with the conditions in our life that are bothering us, that are upsetting us. Because if we're resisting them, we stay stuck in those conditions. And we start feeling resentment and bitterness, maybe hatred, maybe rage, because we're resisting it. And there's a lot of energy going into that. When we are in resistance, when we are feeling hate and rage, we cannot call forth the wonder that is God. When we are in resistance, we are instead acting in a way that implies we believe God is limited. Okay, so we shall not bear false witness against the source of our good. So Jesus did say, don't resist evil. Don't resist it, because we pour energy into it. But he did talk about resisting the adversary. Right? He said, in his words, was, get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, Satan. The adversary in unity, we call it the little me. Okay? In personal development circles, they call it the ego. But it's that little part of us that just wants to keep us small and limited. Resisting evil, we don't resist evil because that's about our environment. That's about conditions. But we do resist the adversary because that's something that has already happened in our head. We have to change our mind about it. Okay? Now, we're learning a lot about this in Complaint Free. Complaint Free. Because complaint will pop into our head, and we have to decide. It's not complaining until it comes out of our mouth. All right? And so when we're thinking about that in our head, or any limiting thought, because really all of this, anytime we bear false witness against the source of our good, really if you want to just just simplify it, it's complaining. But some of those complaints look like, I can't do anything, I'm worthless, or this is too hard, or this is never going to happen. Okay, so but it's all complaining because we're putting a limitation on something and believing that God can't work through it. So we resist the urge to complain. We do resist that. It's already in our head, so we have to change our mind about what's happening in there. So if our words in our head are, well, this will never work out. The situation I'm in is too hard. I'm stupid. I can't even do this stuff. Any complaint that you can possibly think of, right? Anything you can think of, it is a created false idea. That's what it is. It is a false idea of what you are actually capable of. Our adversary, whom we must resist, our little me, that's the voice in our head that bears false witness against God, the source of our good. It is trying to convince us, its only job is to convince us that we are only worth lack and limitation. That's all we deserve, is lack and limitation, because really all it wants to do is keep us alive. Now, we are created in the image and likeness of our Creator. We are created to be creators. Well, that's big and scary to the adversary, right? That's moving us out of our comfort zone all the time. That's going out into the world. That's sharing the vulnerable things inside of us that mean something to us. And then what if somebody makes fun of us? So the adversary is, no, don't do that. You can't do that. You'd never be able to do that. Why do you think you could even try? So that's all it's trying to do, is just keep us stuck in our little comfort zone. But it just keeps tempting us. So the voice that we hear in our head, that is making us feel bad about ourselves, that's not us, actually. We're the divinity using this body right now. That voice is a program, but it's using our voice to trick us. I've heard this. I've heard in a couple of times how it's spoken to me in my head. Is like, it said, we deserve to buy a new purse. And I was like, we? Who else is in there? Like we, and sometimes that's how it comes across, but it's using our voice. So, but that's its job. All right, that's its job, is to convince us that God's everywhere presence is a lie. To convince us that God's ultimate, or the ultimate authority of everything, and has goodness for everybody in plentitude, and grace and love for everybody in plentitude. This little voice just wants to convince us it's a lie to keep us small. Now, we are divinely designed to create heaven on earth, but we can choose lack instead of abundance. We can choose that. And we move into forgetfulness, and we forget who we really are. We forget what it is that works through us, for us, as us. And that's how we are bearing false witness against the source of all of our good. As we decide, I'm stuck. This is a big problem, this life is, and there's nothing out there that can help me. And that is a truth, actually, in a way. There's nothing out there that will actually fix everything. We call it forth. We are calling it forth through us. So here's our call to action this week. I mentioned how we live in this paradox of crazy conditions where we can really, really be concerned. And it's totally normal for us to be concerned about things. Like if we have a friend who is really ill, or if we do really have these financial concerns, or if we really are worried about the state of our country, and like we're feeling the heaviness in us. Like if we're really, really feeling that, we don't want to resist that, right? We don't want to resist it and pretend that everything's fine. We want to acknowledge it. Oh, this is what I'm feeling right now. This is what I'm feeling. We have to acknowledge it to take it to God, right? We have to acknowledge it to be able to turn it around. So we accept what's happening, and then we affirm the activity of God in all things. Okay, so we can say, yeah, I'm really worried about all this A, B, and C. I'm so worried about it, I could hardly sleep last night. But, I am a divine being in a body right now having an earthly experience. I am the hands and the heart of God in this world. I'm not meant to suffer in this. God is already busy on all this, I just don't see how. So I'll just look for the wonder that is God. I'll keep reminding myself. Everything is God. God is all things, everything that's ever been, everything that's yet to be, and that means me, and all my ideas, and all my inspirations. So we think about our friends who maybe aren't feeling well. And we can say that, I'm so sad they're not feeling well right now. But I know that the activity of God is already working in them. Every single body is designed to move back into well-being. There's a divine program in each of us that already caused that to happen if we can get out of our own way. Right? The abundance situation, finances, well, okay, yeah, maybe I'm worried about finances, but you know, the activity of God is pure abundance and ideas and inspirations and open doors and opportunities, and there's going to be some way it's going to surprise me, and this is how I'll create more abundance in my life. And that's how I know it's a sign, it's a wonder, it's because it will surprise me. We think about everybody in our country. Maybe we're worried about half the country. I don't know, right? That's kind of what it seems like right now. We can remind ourselves, well, the spark of the divine is in every single person. They may not recognize it yet, but God is alive in every person. Every single person on this planet is the activity of God using a body to have an experience right now. And I can choose to focus on that. I can choose to focus on the wonder that is God. Now, if we're going through something really heavy, like we're really experiencing some grief, pain, discontent, and it's too much for us to hold, that's why we have each other. We have a little grace for each other. We have mercy for each other. If somebody's having a hard time and they don't know what to do with all that, we just sit with them and let them speak it. We remember for them what it is that works through them. Or if it's us feeling all that heaviness, we choose somebody who we know we can sit with because we know they'll remember that for us. And luckily, we don't all feel the heaviness and the grief and the pain and the discontent at the same time. That's how we can be here for each other. So we have mercy for each other. We have that extra grace for each other. We do live in an earthly paradox that is a mix of paradise and misery, and it's on us to make the choice because we're the one calling forth something through us. We're calling forth something. So we ask, all right, am I calling forth the wonders that are God? Calling forth that through me and into my life? Or am I focusing on the scary stuff and calling that forth through me and into my life? So we don't want to resist the condition, but we do want to resist the voice in our head that wants to keep us small, that wants us to keep believing, oh, you know what, why would I even bother to pray? Okay, we want to resist that voice. So here's our affirmation. Here's our affirmation. I tell the truth about God's abundance. I tell the truth about it. I'm going to do that all week. I'm going to tell the truth about God's abundance. You know, that little voice in our head, it's just perpetuating false information. That's all it's doing. It's just, and if it works one time on us, it knows it can keep doing it. If it worked once, it'll keep working forever until we notice what's happening. You know, I used to I had this dog and I'd hide a little dog treat under a cup upside down. And I had to show her the first time, like, what I did. But then after that, I could set the dog treat somewhere and put the cup upside down. She'd still think it was under the cup. Like sometimes we do that. We get stuck in that cycle. It is the desire of God that we should have all that we need because it's in our divine design. That's why when we call forth the good through us, for us, as us, into our life, that's why that feels good. When we are suffering, that does not feel good because we're not meant to call forth more suffering. We're not meant to be in fear. That's not part of us as the spark of God in this world. Okay, we're created to be creators. That's what we do. Creators keep expanding stuff. Creators keep expanding the good stuff and keep spreading it out into the world. That is what creators do. In Matthew 5:8, Jesus says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." This is what it means to be pure in heart. We don't disrespect the activity of God. We don't blame or think that God is limited in any way. When we're pure in heart, we're remembering God is all things, and that means me. On it, all that stuff, right? That's being pure in heart. Pure in heart, we're resisting the temptation of that little voice in our head trying to get us to disrespect this power. Okay, that's how we are pure in heart. We resist limiting God. Instead, we see the truth. God is all things, and God is bigger than anything in its way. So we don't resist what weighs on us. We acknowledge those things that are weighing on us, the conditions of our life, but then we affirm the presence of God in all of those things. We keep affirming the presence of God no matter what's going on. It's okay if we're feeling grief or pain or discontent or heartache, but we acknowledge it and affirm that God is still working on all that, and we just don't know how yet. We don't know how, but it's going to happen. Something's going to surprise us. So we keep affirming the activity of God. This gives us the freedom then to be creating as our Creator created us to be. And that's how we create heaven on earth. So until next time, remember, you are divinely designed to do all of this stuff that we talk about. It gets in there already. You've got the program. You don't need to go get some little special thing. And everything you do, you are blessed, and so it is. So it is. All right, so we got a song.